Welcome to my series based on Zentangle's Bijou Be Well, done in May 2025. Each day, Zentangle put out a video featuring one pattern, and the design was meant to be drawn in a short amount of time, so you could just take a little time for yourself and kind of get yourself centered. I encourage you to go visit their YouTube channel. I'll have the link down in the comments, and you could see how they did their designs. This series is meant to walk you through how to draw each design, and then also to give you some alternative ideas for embellishments and ways to kind of zhuzh up that pattern. In this video, we're looking at pepper. For all cards in this series, I used the same tools, so you will see in every single video in this series a blue Micron 05 pen, a General's Indigo blue chalk pastel pencil, an 8B graphite pencil, two Tortillons, so one for blue, one for black, and white tiles. And of course, that's my trusty little pencil sharpener there as well. If you followed along with the Zentangle series, you will notice that they also include a white pencil and a Tortillon for that. I chose to not use those for my series because I'm using a white tile, and I find that the white chalk pastel pencil really doesn't add very much to the design. Take a moment to gather your tools, get yourself centered, make sure you're sitting comfortably in your chair. When you're ready, let's begin. We'll start by drawing a seed shape string. We're not going to do a border, just a seed going diagonally across the card, corner to corner. And then in each corner, we're going to draw an arc that creates a big teardrop shape. And once you get those two arcs drawn, you'll draw a gentle S shape that connects the two. And then you have 4 quadrants. In each quadrant, put a small little circle in the middle. Put down your pencil, pick up your pen, and let's get tangling. So the first thing we're going to do is, starting with one of the end shapes, we're going to draw an arc that goes from the outside pencil line to that little circle in the middle, and then come out and draw what starts as an aura, but then you kind of bring it into the line itself. So you're thickening the line, but you're making it extra thick on the edge. You can either go on the inside of the curve or the outside of the curve, whatever you have the most space for. So you could see the first time I went on the inside of the curve, the second time I went on the outside of the curve. And what I'm really trying to do is make it look like that pen line is wrapping itself a little ways around the pencil. So the arc is a little sharper on the outside of the circle, and then it becomes much more gentle as it gets to that little inside orb. So we're always starting on the outside edge and just bringing it in and landing it on the line of the little orb. Leave some space between each arc before you start another one. We want the white space for contrast, and we're going to do something with that when we start working on our shading and adding color. So keep going around the space. Since this isn't a perfectly round space, you'll have to probably be a little creative when you get to the little point at the end of your seed shape. You can decide how the arc best fits and how the arc best wraps around that little point. And when you finish your first shape down here on this end, you're going to turn around and go to the other end and basically do exactly the same thing. And once you get those end peppers done, we're going to work with these odd-shaped spaces here in the middle. I recommend starting along the outside edge so it's not running up against anything, and you can basically continue doing what you've been doing. So creating that arc starting at the outside line, bringing it in and landing it on the little inside orb. When you get to one of your end peppers, you can decide how you want to deal with it. What I ended up doing is I created kind of that arc shape starting at the edge of the round pepper. And then when I created the thickening, I just widened the edge of the line as if it was going to wrap around something. We just can't see what it's wrapping around. This line here, you can really see how I did that. I created a really fat edge and then filled it in. And so while I was running up against that round line, I just kept doing that. And then you just have to work out the spacing so you don't have the two like black lines running into each other from the two different peppers. So the one thing I did here with this design that I think if I was going to do this type of string again, I would do a little differently is I was thinking about, as I was drawing this, perhaps having them kind of alternate. So that first line I drew wraps around that center line. Now this one is running up against the center line, but I'm not doing that little wraparound arc. My thought process was I was going to alternate them. So on the other side, there'd be a wraparound and a flat and a wraparound and a flat, sort of like what I'm doing here. And I like how the card turned out. There are no mistakes in Zentangle. I think, you know, it works. But I think it would have been more interesting, now kind of thinking about how I did this, to have actually had one of these side ones be quote unquote on top of the other one. Sort of like what we're doing here when we're running into the rounded pepper shapes. But at the end of the day, you can decide how you want to space things out. Maybe you want that inner line having both of the pepper shapes just kind of meeting the line and not wrapping around at all. That's certainly a way to approach this, having these two shapes kind of meet each other as well. There's lots of possibilities. When you get done with one side, you're of course going to turn around and do the other side. Once you get your 4 peppers done, you can put your pen down and pick up either your chalk pastel pencil or your graphite pencil. Either will work. For each pepper shape, I'm going to put some graphite right around the middle orb, just on the outside edge of that. And then I'm going to create a fairly thick line of either the color or the graphite around the outside edge of each pepper shape. Next, pick up your tortillon. And what we're going to do is we're going to blend out the middle and the outside edge. So the outside edge, I'm doing little circular motions and I'm pulling the color kind of into the stripe that we've created with the ink. but I'm being careful not to go all the way to the middle. And then when I blend out the middle, I'm going to create a bit of a gradient, but I'm not going to take that all the way out to the blue. So basically what you're going to have is either blue or graphite with a little bit of a white stripe kind of going around the middle of the donut. So you basically have the low light of the outside edge of the pepper shape, and then the center bit, and then you've created a highlight just using the weight of the card by just making sure you don't pull the graphite or the color all the way out. From here, I'm going to grab my graphite. Now, if you've been using graphite all along, you still might want to do this. And I'm going to use the graphite to really emphasize the borders between each of the pepper shapes. So it's really easy to do this when you've done a color. But if you've already done graphite, you can go back and really darken up the lines in between each of the shapes and create a very deep shadow between them. And that will just really make it look more three-dimensional. Be sure to blend out the graphite that you put down. You don't have to go very far from the line. Just as you rub over it, you're going to get a darker shade anyway. The more you rub on the graphite, the darker it will get. And that will create a deeper shadow. From here, I will also put a little bit of graphite on the inside of that little circle in the middle. I do like a half moon shape. I don't do the entire circle, so that way that little inside circle has a dark side and a slightly lighter side. All of my little circles are very, very small, so this is a real subtle effect. And then finally, I'm just going around with my tortillon. I did not add any more graphite to the outside edge, but what I'm doing is I'm kind of blending together the blue and that string line in places where the pen is like a little ways away from the color. I do a little bit to pull the color or the graphite towards it, but if it's really, really super far away, I don't always bother with that. And you can see here I'm actually adding a little graphite to kind of fix that one spot and thicken that up a bit. Take a few moments and admire your work. And when you're ready, pick up your pen and add your chop to your creation. And there you have it, pepper.